Hi there. We're here discussing here the North America Free Trade Agreement. As students of international matters, it's very important to have good knowledge of the international treaties that Mexico has with other countries. This time specifically, we're talking and discussing about NAFTA Chapter 6 and Chapter 7. Chapter 6 talks about energy and basic petrochemicals, and Chapter 7 about agriculture and phytosanitary measures. Before we go deep into the chapter, we are going to build a basis reviewing a little bit of NAFTA, principles and history, so we can have a more constructive opinion regarding these matters. At this point of our careers, we all should know that NAFTA is a treaty celebrated between Mexico, Canada, and USA. At the beginning of the articles of NAFTA, Article 102 states basically, we can see that these points talk about cooperation, objectives to make free trade agreement more easy, and economic cooperation between countries. So with this, the countries can promote trade and have more efficient industries. Before we start going deep into Chapter 6 and Chapter 7, second one, we are going to look a little bit into NAFTA's history.
International trade has been considered beneficial to the nations involved, and to achieve better trade, they try to reduce costs, and that is why Canada and the US formed a free trade agreement in 1989. But it was in the 90s that Mexico joined in the conversation, and they started discussing the phasing out of trade tariffs between the three nations. And after 3 years, in 1994, it was in January, the North American Free Trade Agreement was finally launched. After diplomatic negotiations between the three nations, the three leaders finally met in San Antonio, Texas on December 17, 1992 to sign NAFTA. The president, it was George H.W. Bush from the United States, the Canadian Prime Minister, Brian Mulroney, and Mexican President Carlos Salinas, each responsible for spearheading and promoting the agreement.
So, NAFTA normativity involves different chapters about how the members should interact with each other. It involves rules, sub-agreements, legal and political matters, and such more. First of all, Chapter 6 of NAFTA mentions how important is to all members the energy and petrochemical goods trade. In Article 602, it mentions the agreement of all members that energy and basic petrochemical products should be traded in a free way, and such trade should be open to constant liberalization during time. Another important article of NAFTA is the 607, which mentions that no member should pay any kind of tax, duty, or any other charge of exportations or imports on these kind of goods, except when the nation is in a conflict with another country, or the national security is in risk, or when the country applies to a non-nuclear distribution measure. In Chapter 7, which is agriculture and sanitary and phytosanitary measures, Article 703 mentions that all parties should work together as a team, with the goals of a reduction and elimination of import barriers to trade between all members on agricultural goods.
ranchers for economic success and consumers for better food prices. The agricultural connection between Canada, United States, and Mexico has caused an increase in export-import business in commodities, food commodities especially. But at the end, farming income has declined and consumer prices have risen in some commodities. Big companies are gaining power and small farmers are losing power. Imports to the United States have increased incredibly, and exports to Canada and Mexico have grown in a good pace. After a 14-year plan in the NAFTA treaty to end restrictions between Mexico, United States, and Canada, the countries have disappeared barriers for agricultural trade. The agricultural sectors in the three countries have become more united and integrated between them. Apart from free trade, the effort is being made between countries of NAFTA to increase efforts on coordination for increasing food safety and phytosanitary regulations and measures. NAFTA countries have adopted methods for protection of food safety, and each is responsible of adopting these phytosanitary measures and standards for the protection of human beings and animals. These measures are specifically based on science and non-discriminatory, and also are transparent.
I am going to talk about NAFTA's Chapter 6, Energy and Basic Petrochemicals. First of all, it is important to mention the impact and magnitude of this chapter in NAFTA's countries. So here are some leading facts. First, that the United States is the #1 oil consumer and importer of the world, and the fact that Canada and Mexico represent second and third oil exporters to the United States just after Saudi Arabia. The three parties of NAFTA outstand in the top 10 world oil producers. Regarding Mexico, it can be said that this country has more sensibility towards the oil industry because it relies more on oil commerce than the other NAFTA members. Mexico's oil industry is controlled by the state-owned company named Pemex. And even though there have been talks and pressure towards Pemex about the liberalization of this industry, this objective today seems very far. Mainly because from one side it is one important source of income to the Mexican state, and the other because lots of Mexican people see Pemex as a national pride. In NAFTA, Mexico also has some special provisions, like the energy production, which states that a private company, being national or foreign, can produce its own energy. But in case of excess, it only must be sold to the CFE, being this the Comisión Federal de Electricidad.